When night falls, the darkness starts to speak. Between each breath and the silence, there are whispers no one was meant to hear. This is Night Whispers, where the dark has a story to tell. I grew up in a quiet little town in West Virginia, where life moved slowly and everyone knew each other. When I started college in 2021, the world was still shadowed by COVID, and even small things like living in a dorm felt different. My university wasn't far from home, just 15 minutes away, but I soon learned that sometimes the most ordinary places can hide the most unsettling stories. Most students had moved off campus because of COVID, turning the dorm halls into silent, half-empty corridors. I couldn't afford an apartment, so I stayed behind, convincing myself it would be the real college experience. Since home was only a short drive away, I planned to spend weekends there. On move-in day, I finally met my roommate, the girl the school had matched me with and oddly given my number to. She seemed polite, but there was something distant in her eyes that I couldn't quite name. She texted me first, friendly enough at the start. In person, though, her warmth felt more like politeness, measured distant. There was something about her posture, her tone, that hinted at privilege, like she believed she deserved more space than the rest of us. Once while chatting, she casually said, "Everyone had their own rooms last semester until you came." Her words stung, though her face stayed expressionless. I laughed it off, pretending it didn't bother me, and quickly shifted the conversation to something safer. I mentioned that I lived close by, explaining I'd head home every weekend and return early Monday morning. She barely reacted, just nodded, expression blank. During the week, she was rarely around, spending most nights with her boyfriend in another dorm. At first, I thought the quiet would be nice. But that first Friday, as I packed my bag and left, I didn't realize that coming back on Monday at 6 a.m. would mark the start of something deeply unsettling. That Monday, I didn't have class until 10, so I decided to crawl back into bed for a quick nap. My thick, memory foam mattress hugged me in comfort until it didn't. After about 10 minutes, I felt the edge dip as if someone had leaned on it. I froze, too tired to fully grasp what was happening. A moment later, the pressure lifted, the bed rose back, and that's when the realization chilled me to the bone. Someone had definitely leaned on my bed. When I turned, my roommate was facing the wall, motionless as if fast asleep. I convinced myself it was nothing and drifted back off. The following weekend played out the same, left Friday, returned Monday, exhausted. I barely got under the blanket when the mattress sank again, deeper this time, not just at the edge. It felt as though someone had sat right beside me, and my heart began to race. The entire side of my mattress dipped heavy and deliberate. Someone was sitting right beside me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, frozen in disbelief. Then came the faint sound of movement, followed by a soft thud. Whoever it was had jumped off. My bed was high. I needed a stool to climb onto it. Heart pounding, I finally turned my head. There she was again, my roommate, lying still, back turned to me, as if nothing had happened. I didn't know what to believe. Maybe I was imagining it, too tired, too paranoid. Could it have been sleep paralysis? No, I could move. Maybe someone had snuck in, impossible. Only my roommate and I had keys. I tried to laugh it off, blaming exhaustion for the strange feeling. But deep down, unease clung to me like a shadow. By the time Monday rolled around again, the thought of returning to that room made my stomach twist. When I came in, she was already lying on her bed, this time facing mine. Her eyes were closed, her breathing steady. Thinking she was asleep, I climbed into my own bed, desperate for rest. 5 minutes later, the mattress dipped again. My eyes snapped shut. Someone was sitting beside me. I could feel the weight, the warmth, then a cold hand pressed against the back of my neck. My heart dropped so fast I thought I might faint. I was sure I would faint. Every nerve in my body screamed, but I didn't move an inch. The hand didn't tighten, it just stayed there, resting cold and deliberate on my neck. Minutes, or maybe hours, crawled by before the pressure lifted. The bed shifted as they got off. I stayed frozen, too afraid to breathe. When I finally turned, she was lying still back to me, facing the wall. Sleeping or pretending, I didn't dare find out. I bolted from the room and called my mom, shaking so badly I could barely speak. I skipped class and told her everything. She contacted the school right away, and thankfully, they let me change rooms. When asked if I wanted to call the police, I refused. There was no proof, only my fear. I just begged them not to assign her another roommate. Later, while unpacking in my new room, fragments of strange memories started to resurface. It suddenly hit me she once mentioned having a previous roommate who didn't stay long, though she never explained why. Back then, I didn't think much of it. But now I remembered the locked drawer she'd once opened filled with at least 10 bottles of prescription medication. When I'd asked, she'd casually said it was for a skin condition. I had believed her at the time. But sitting in my new room, I couldn't help wondering if that medicine was for something far more disturbing. A few days passed before I realized I'd left a book and a binder in her room. Honestly, I didn't care about getting them back until she texted insisting I come retrieve them. Her message felt strangely polite, almost forced. I told her I was busy settling into my new room, hoping she'd drop it, but she didn't. Not wanting to raise suspicion, I agreed. When I tried my old key, it still worked. The door clicked open and I stepped inside, my pulse quickening. She wasn't there and I exhaled in relief. Quickly, I grabbed my things and turned to leave, only to freeze. She was suddenly in the doorway. I hadn't heard the door open or her footsteps. My stomach dropped. I forced a shaky smile, pretending everything was normal. She stared silently as I tried to walk past, then finally spoke. "Where's your new room?" My mind raced. "First floor," I lied. Her eyes narrowed. "Which hall?" she pressed. I lied again. She wouldn't stop asking, was it near the stairs, the front, the office? I kept my voice steady, pretending to forget. Finally, I lied again. Yeah, near the stairs, and turned to leave before she could say more. I never saw her again. For weeks, I debated telling her boyfriend, but fear kept me silent. Even now, I still wonder, was it all real? A dream? A hallucination? No, it couldn't have been anyone else. Only she had the key. Sometimes I try to rationalize it. Maybe she was sleepwalking, trapped in some strange side effect of her medication. Or maybe it was darker than that, something deliberate. My mom believes she was testing boundaries, seeing how close she could get before I woke up, until that one morning when she nearly crossed the line completely. I'll never know for sure. It's behind me now, but I still pray she never gets another roommate. Not ever again. It happened during my years at the University of Huddersfield between 2021 and 2023. The campus wasn't lively after dark, no bars, no crowds, just quiet buildings glowing under fluorescent light. Most students pulled late nights in the library or 24-hour study halls. I'd never been one to stay out late, always preferring the comfort of my dorm. But during my final year, with deadlines closing in and exhaustion creeping closer, I found myself trapped in a night I'll never forget. That semester, I was drowning in an advanced statistics class. Our professor was infamous for assigning monstrous projects that could consume entire weekends. The biggest one was due soon, and I was embarrassingly behind. To make matters worse, my laptop had started freezing every hour, as if mocking my stress. Desperate to catch up, I decided to head to the business building and use one of the campus computers, quiet, reliable, and I hope distraction-free. The business building sat on the edge of campus, away from the noise and lights of the dorms. It was 3 stories tall, slightly outdated, and carried an odd, sterile quiet that felt heavier at night. Still, its second-floor computer lab was almost always empty after 9, perfect for focusing without interruption. That night, I arrived around 10, the hallways already echoing with that unsettling kind of silence where every small sound feels too loud, too close. The campus was silent, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears. The moment I stepped inside, a chill wrapped around me. It was noticeably colder than outside. I swiped my student ID, heard the soft beep, and the door clicked open. A strong scent of disinfectant lingered in the air, sharp and sterile. It told me one thing: the cleaning staff had already finished their rounds. I was completely alone in that building, or at least I thought I was. I headed straight to the computer lab, logged into a station, and began working. The steady hum of the machine and the soft rhythm of my typing made the silence almost comforting. For a while, it felt peaceful, just me, my project, and the clock glowing in the corner of the screen. I promised myself I'd leave before 1 in the morning. But when the clock struck 1130, that calm was broken by something I couldn't explain. I was deep in my data, half lost in numbers, when a loud slam echoed through the hallway. It wasn't the main door, it came from somewhere deeper inside the building. The sound was sharp, deliberate. I froze for a second, then told myself it was nothing, probably the air pressure or a draft. But the thought didn't sit right. The janitors had already finished hours ago. No one else was supposed to be here. No one but me. I forced myself to ignore the noise and kept typing, pretending everything was fine. But then came footsteps, slow, heavy, deliberate. Each step echoed down the hallway outside the lab, steady and unhurried, as if whoever it was wanted me to know they were there. My fingers hovered above the keyboard, frozen mid-motion. I stared at the glowing monitor, trying to steady my breathing silently, begging for the steps to fade away, for them to just keep walking. The footsteps stopped right outside the lab door. My heart jumped into my throat. If I leaned back, I could see through the small window, but fear rooted me in place. I sat there, barely breathing, staring at the glowing screen. Then came the sound of the handle metal twisting, shaking. Not gentle, not curious. It was sharp, rhythmic, intentional. Whoever was out there wasn't trying to get in quietly. They wanted me to hear. They wanted me to be afraid. Whoever it was kept trying the handle over and over like they wanted in but couldn't. My heart pounded so hard it drowned out the noise. I remembered the doors locked automatically after hours. There was no way they could get inside. Still, the relentless rattle made my stomach twist with dread. After what felt like half a minute, the sound stopped. Then came the footsteps again, slow and steady, fading down the hall until the silence returned. I sat frozen in my chair, torn between fleeing and finishing my work. My project was due the next morning, and the rational part of me whispered that it was probably just some student playing a prank. I clung to that thought like a lifeline, forcing myself to keep typing, pretending everything was normal. But before 10 minutes had passed, the sound returned, those same slow, deliberate footsteps echoing through the empty hall once more. This time, the footsteps didn't echo from the hallway, they came from above me. I froze, staring at the ceiling. The building had those thin panels where you could sometimes hear pipes creak when the heat kicked on, but this wasn't that. This was heavier, slower. A deliberate shuffling, like someone dragging themselves across the tiles right overhead. Each faint scrape sent a chill through me. Someone or something was up there, and they were moving directly above my head. I stared up, my breath caught in my throat. One of the ceiling tiles trembled just slightly, but enough to show that something or someone was pressing down on it. Then came a slow, drawn-out creak, like a person trying to lower themselves silently. My stomach dropped. That was it. I'd had enough. I yanked my flash drive from the computer, shoved my notebook into my backpack, and bolted for the door, my pulse hammering in my ears. The moment I stepped into the hallway, it felt like entering another world, cold, hollow, and humming faintly with the buzz of tired fluorescent lights. Every squeak of my sneakers against the tile sounded deafening in the emptiness. I quickened my pace, fighting the urge to sprint, forcing myself to stay composed. When I reached the stairwell, I grabbed the handle, shoved the heavy door open, and began hurrying down the steps, my heart pounding in my throat. That's when I made the mistake of looking up. One floor above, on the landing, stood a man. He wasn't a student, not a professor either, just wrong out of place. His clothes hung loose, tattered as if he'd been wearing them for days. The dim light caught only half his face, but what I saw froze me, his mouth stretched into a disturbingly wide grin, teeth bared motionless. He didn't blink. He didn't move. He just watched me. He stood perfectly still, eyes locked on me, that awful grin frozen in place. For a split second, neither of us moved, then instinct took over. I bolted. My feet pounded against the stairs as I flew downward, nearly tripping in my panic. I burst through the first floor door and sprinted toward the main entrance. My ID card beeped just in time, the lock clicked, and I shoved it open, running across campus without daring to look back. I didn't stop running until I reached my dorm, slammed the door shut, and locked it behind me. My back pressed against the wood as I tried to catch my breath, heart still racing like it wanted out of my chest. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I forced myself to return. My project was due after all. In daylight, the business building seemed harmless, ordinary even, but the memory of last night clung to every shadowed corner. Then I saw it. One of the ceiling tiles was gone. My stomach twisted. It was the same one directly above where I'd been sitting, and another missing in the corner, the one I'd seen shift. In that moment, everything clicked. Whoever had been up there hadn't just crawled across the ceiling, they'd been watching me, waiting. When they couldn't get through the door, they tried to scare me instead. The thought alone was enough to make my skin crawl, but then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. One of the ceiling tiles was missing the one directly above where I had been sitting. Another gap yawned open in the corner exactly where I'd seen the tile shift the night before. My mind raced. It wasn't a noise or the wind or my imagination. Someone had been up there watching me work, rattling the door when they couldn't get in just to see how I'd react. My name is Annabelle. I'm 20 now and I'm from the UK. What I'm about to share happened when I was 16 during my time in high school, what we call college here. It was without a doubt the scariest day of my life. Maybe it sounds dramatic, but trust me, you'll understand soon. For context, my school used ID lanyards that granted access to the building. Anyone could enter the foyer, but only a valid scan could unlock the inner doors beyond it. Each ID card had our name and photo printed on it, though most students flipped theirs backwards so no one could see their faces. You needed the card to open nearly every door in the school except the classrooms. The building itself was fairly new, modern, and deceptively big. In reality, it was quite small, but its wide halls and high ceilings made it seem larger than it was. A third of it was reserved for a special school for children with learning disabilities. Another third of the building was a nursery, and the final section was the high school itself, the part where I studied. I had just started there, still getting used to the layout and the faces. On the very first day, teachers warned us over and over, never let anyone into the school unless you knew who they were. It seemed simple enough at the time. The day everything happened was only my second full day there. I'd been sick most of the week before, still feeling weak and unfamiliar. That day, my schedule was packed with geography classes from morning to afternoon. The incident happened about halfway through the day, roughly 20 minutes after lunch. I clearly remember gulping down an absurd amount of juice from the cafeteria because students weren't allowed to bring drinks into class. I didn't want to waste it, so I finished every drop before the bell rang. It was such a small, ordinary moment at the time, but looking back, that simple decision changed everything that followed. About 20 minutes later, that mountain of juice caught up to me. I really needed the bathroom. I raised my hand and asked my teacher if I could go. Normally, we weren't allowed to leave during lessons, and he gave me that look teachers always do when they think you're just making excuses. He sighed, clearly irritated. "We just had a break," he muttered, but then saw the desperation on my face. With a reluctant nod, he finally waved me out of the classroom. What made this moment important was how empty the school was. During class hours, the hallways were always silent, no students wandering, rarely even a teacher in sight. When I stepped out, I passed through the double doors into the cafeteria. It was completely deserted, the sound of my footsteps echoing off the walls. I crossed into the adjoining room with more classrooms, used the bathroom quickly, and then made my way back through the cafeteria, again heading toward my geography class. When I pushed open the doors to the cafeteria again, I froze for a second. A man was sitting alone at one of the tables. It wasn't completely strange, people occasionally passed through during class hours, but something about him felt out of place. He was older, clearly not a student, so I assumed he must be a teacher or maybe a visiting parent. Still, I didn't recognize his face. Trying not to stare, I just kept walking, telling myself it was nothing unusual. As I walked past, he suddenly said, "Hey." The sound made me jump so hard I let out a little squeal. I've always been jumpy by nature, and I definitely wasn't expecting him to speak. My face flushed with embarrassment, but he just chuckled lightly and said, "Sorry, didn't mean to scare you." His tone was friendly enough to lower my guard. That's when I noticed the lanyard around his neck. Seeing it, I immediately assumed he was a teacher and relaxed a little. Looking back, there was one detail that still makes my stomach twist. The man's ID card, the one hanging from his lanyard, was flipped backward. The photo and name were facing inward, pressed against the back of the holder, completely hidden. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Students at my school did that all the time to avoid showing their pictures. But seeing an adult, a supposed teacher, doing the same thing, that should have been my first sign that something wasn't right. The scanner worked fine even if the card was flipped, so I didn't think twice. Still, it was odd teachers never did that. But back then, I brushed it off. Then, he said almost casually, "I need some help getting some work things out of my car. Do you mind coming out with me for just a sec?" His tone was calm, almost friendly. Without hesitation, I nodded and replied, "Yeah, of course." I didn't know it yet, but that simple answer nearly changed my life. I followed him without a second thought, still convinced he was a teacher. We left the cafeteria, passed through the foyer, and stepped outside. The silence between us felt strange. Usually, teachers would make small talk, ask about classes, exams, anything, but he said nothing. The air felt heavier with each step. I started to notice little things, the way his hands fidgeted, constantly slipping into his pockets, then out again, ringing together nervously. Something about his body language didn't match the calm tone he'd used earlier. At one point, he shoved his hands into his pockets, then pulled them out again, fidgeting as if he couldn't decide what to do with them. I'm not great at social situations myself, painfully shy really, so I didn't try to start any conversation either. We just walked in silence. The front of the school stretched out before us about 50 meters to the car park. You couldn't see it from the building. A line of thick bushes hid it completely until you were right next to it. If you kept walking straight past the car park, you'd actually leave school property entirely. We were heading that way in silence when he finally spoke again. "Yeah, my work stuff is in the boot," he said casually, then added, "That's what we call the trunk here in the UK." His tone was light, almost friendly. "I've got a few bags, just need you to help me carry a couple into the school." I nodded, forcing a polite smile, but something about his sudden friendliness felt rehearsed. I smiled and said, "Yeah, that's fine," trying to sound helpful. We reached the car park and he pointed toward the far end. "My car's the blue one down there," he said. As we walked closer, I noticed movement inside, just a flicker at first, something shifting in the back seat. My heart skipped. A few more steps and it became clear there were two men crouched in the back. I froze, mind blank. They must have realized I saw them because the back door suddenly swung open. In an instant, chaos exploded. One of the men in the back seat lunged out of the car and the man I'd thought was a teacher grabbed my arm just as I turned to run. He was tall, broad-shouldered, easily twice my size. For context, I'm only 5'2" and barely weigh anything. I don't know how I did it. Adrenaline, fear, survival, but somehow I wrenched my arm free from his grip and bolted, sprinting with every ounce of strength back toward the school. I could hear their footsteps pounding behind me, heavy, fast, closing in. My lungs burned, but I didn't dare slow down. Then suddenly the footsteps stopped. Thank God. My school's entrance had large glass automatic doors that took a few seconds to open. If they'd kept chasing, they would have caught me easily. I remember praying those doors would slide open in time. Maybe the fact they were glass scared them off. Someone might have seen us, if anyone happened to be walking by. Either way, I made it through the doors and stumbled into the foyer, gasping for breath. I spotted the small cafe connected to the library and sprinted inside straight to the woman working behind the counter. Words tumbled out between sobs as I told her what had happened. She immediately comforted me, guiding me back into the school and to a teacher's office. From there, she called my parents and the police. Thanks to the security cameras in the car park, the men were caught and charged with attempted kidnapping. Later, I found out how he'd gotten inside. A student had accidentally dropped their lanyard outside the school, and that's what he'd been using to get past security. It explained why his ID was flipped. He didn't want anyone to notice the wrong name or face. After that, I couldn't bring myself to go back to school for weeks. I'm still in therapy trying to make sense of it all. Writing this down, though, feels like the first step toward taking my life back. Even now, years later, I still think about that day, the echo of footsteps, the fake lanyard, the sheer terror of realizing what almost happened. No nightmare has ever felt as real as that moment. It changed the way I see people, the way I trust strangers. I'm grateful to be alive, but that fear never truly leaves you. To this day, it remains the single most terrifying experience of my life. Thank you for staying until the end. If the dark didn't scare you away, maybe you belong here. Subscribe to Night Whispers and let the darkness find you again next time.